Since the Chinese rover Chang'e 5 landed on the moon, there has been increasing evidence that this celestial body is quite different from what we have long imagined, especially within its interior. The moon appears to hide treasures, though we have not had the slightest idea about them. The shocking discoveries of the rover could change our world forever. What exactly did the rover find deep within the moon, and why might this discovery potentially spell the end of the climate catastrophe? We will examine this now. Stay tuned as we are about to forever change your perspective on this celestial body. The Chang'e 5 mission landed on the moon on December 1, 2020, after a 23-day journey through space. The dual probe had been launched from the Wenchang spacecraft launch site in Hainan Province, China. This is the same site from which predecessor probes, such as Chang'e 3, numerous satellites, and components for the Chinese space station, have been launched. After successfully separating from the orbiter, Chang'e 5's lander touched down in a lunar area called Oceanus Procellarum. This region near the lunar equator is a vast, flat area on the far side of the moon characterized by its extreme breadth and the proximity of the 5,250-foot high Mons Runker. The objective of the Chang'e 5 mission was clearly defined. The nearly 8-ton probe was to collect samples from the lunar surface and bring lunar rock back to Earth for the first time in 40 years. For the first time in human history, this mission was to extract samples from the moon's deep layers. In recent years, scientists have realized that the moon might be very different from what we had long thought. It could even be possible that the moon harbors a large reservoir of mineral resources that could solve our energy problems. For successful drilling, the lander sent the samples back to its orbiter via the Ascent module, and the return journey to Earth began after only 14 Earth days. The mission was celebrated worldwide as a great achievement of Chinese space travel, clearly elevating China into the ranks of the great spacefaring nations of Earth. The return of the samples was eagerly anticipated by international researchers. We can already reveal this much. The hopes for new groundbreaking insights about the moon were more than fulfilled. On December 17, 2020, the return capsule entered Earth's atmosphere and landed successfully in the sparsely populated expanse of Mongolia. As soon as the samples were secured, experts began their analysis with great anticipation. Would the drillings confirm existing theories about the moon's creation, or would they reveal an entirely different truth? Scientists believe that a Mars-sized planet collided with Earth more than 4 billion years ago, creating the moon. During the collision, a part of Earth broke off and was covered with molten rock. Until now, it was assumed that the temperatures were so high that all the water evaporated forever. The moon was considered a parched celestial body, slowly shrinking, or, in other words, drying out. In recent months and years, however, telescopes and probes have found large deposits of water ice in craters near the lunar poles. The narrative shifted, and everyone started questioning where the ice on the moon came from and why it had never been noticed in over 50 years of intense lunar exploration. NASA plans to send astronauts near the poles as part of the Artemis mission in the coming decade. Once there, astronauts are to determine whether the moon's water deposits can be utilized. A planned permanent station on the moon could use the water for humans, grow plants, and even produce fuel. Now, the discovery of Chang'e 5 could completely overthrow all these plans, as this rover has discovered the seemingly impossible: large quantities of water, and that it's everywhere on the moon. In the drill samples, researchers from the Chinese Academy of Sciences found an unusually high density of tiny glass particles. These tiny glass crystals most likely formed when meteorites struck the moon. Hitching a ride on comets could also have brought water to the moon, which is now frozen at the poles. Upon closer examination, the impact glass beads revealed another secret that left researchers speechless. Inside the beads, they found water. Each particle only contains a tiny portion of water, but in bulk, The water deposits on the moon are enormous. Can you imagine that large amounts of water exist on the moon? That sounded unusual to us, but the Chinese study leaves no doubt. In each individual crystal, there are 2,000 parts water to 1 million parts. As you can see, it's really small, and the beads are not even a millimeter in size, but the bulk is made up of water. When converted to the entire moon, there are 2,000 kilograms of water in every metric ton of lunar soil. Under Earth conditions, this is equivalent to 2,000 liters, which is a significant amount. The likelihood that these glass particles are evenly distributed across the moon is high, given that the moon has been bombarded by comets, asteroids, and meteorites for billions of years. This implies that water could be abundant across the entire lunar surface, from the equator to the poles. Future manned moon missions wouldn't necessarily have to land at the poles to utilize water ice. Instead, water from these beads could be easily isolated through heating, providing moon settlers with fresh water anywhere on the celestial body. Further investigations even demonstrated that the water within these lunar crystals was produced by the sun. The theory suggests that positively charged hydrogen atoms from the solar wind mixed with the oxygen in the beads to form water. Studies of hydrogen atoms in the samples also showed that these beads could release part of their hydrogen charge when heated by solar radiation. The total water wealth in the form of impact glass, the estimated total weight of water trapped in the moon's glass beads, is around 298.7 billion short tons, according to current calculations. Back in 2010, NASA estimated the water quota at the moon's north pole to be approximately 661.4 million short tons. Compared to previous assumptions that the moon was completely dry, this is truly astonishing. Even compared to Earth, the abundance of water on the moon is remarkable. Our blue planet, comprised of water and rock, is estimated to hold about 1.47 quintillion short tons of water. Now, you might wonder whether there could ever be a time when this moon ice melts, or if the moon could be transformed into a landscape with rivers, lakes, or even oceans through chemical or mechanical changes in the water glass beads. Naturally, we asked ourselves the same question and investigated the matter. While such ideas sound fantastic, it is unfortunately highly unlikely that water could flow on the moon's surface. The moon has virtually no atmosphere, experiences extreme temperatures, and has very low atmospheric pressure. Under these conditions, water cannot liquefy. Additionally, because the moon has a low density and only a weak magnetic field, significant changes are not expected in the future. However, Mars presents a completely different scenario. There is evidence that liquid water once flowed on Mars, with erosion patterns confirming this multiple times. Ambitious plans for terraforming involve transforming the frozen water at Mars's poles into liquid water to create seas and lakes through an artificially induced greenhouse effect. Nevertheless, experts doubt whether such efforts will ever be realistically achievable. Returning to the moon and the fascinating findings of the Chinese astronauts, the glass beads revealed more than just water. A recent, exciting discovery could potentially trigger a new rush to the moon. Could our energy problems be solved through this discovery? The samples collected by the Chinese space probe are unique, coming from deep layers of the moon. They are about 1 billion years older than the samples collected from the surface by astronauts during the Apollo program. Most likely, these glass beads were formed predominantly over the last 2 billion years due to massive meteorite, asteroid, and comet impacts. To generate the necessary high temperatures, impacts of a magnitude similar to the asteroid that caused the extinction of the dinosaurs on Earth 68 million years ago would have been required. As a relatively small celestial body, the moon has endured significant cosmic influences throughout its history. It's remarkable that the moon has withstood these bombardments so well. Researchers attribute this to its low density and the thick, cushioning layer of lunar dust. The moon's turbulent history could have created unique properties from which humanity could benefit greatly in the future. Chang'e 5 also discovered another crystal in the lunar rocks, which may hold groundbreaking potential. This newly identified moon crystal is composed of a previously unknown substance. Researchers were astonished to find that it contains a crucial component for nuclear fusion. For those unfamiliar with nuclear power, it's worth noting that Earth's energy problems could be solved if we could successfully harness nuclear fusion. Unlike nuclear fission, which has been used to meet energy demands but leaves behind radioactive waste, nuclear fusion fuses light atomic nuclei into heavier ones, releasing significantly more energy without harmful residues. However, achieving fusion has been a challenge because the pressure and energy required to initiate the reaction exceed the energy output. This problem could be solved if a mineral or atom with an inherent readiness for fusion were found, and that's exactly what the Chang'e 5 mission has discovered. The newly identified phosphate mineral was named Chang'e-Y in honor of the mission and the Chinese moon goddess Chang'e. Future research at the Beijing Research Institute of Uranium Geology will determine whether the fusion-ready helium-3 isotope discovered within this mineral can be used on Earth. Could this mean that lunar mining will begin soon? Will spacecraft transport moon rocks to Earth regularly, providing our planet with a much-needed reprieve from energy crises? While the answers remain uncertain, the Chang'e 6 mission, set to collect further samples from the moon's far side in 2024, may shed more light. Meanwhile, these developments are being closely monitored, and NASA has also taken notice. Experts estimate that the United States could be powered for an entire year with just 27.6 short tons of helium-3, a volume easily carried by a single space shuttle. Helium-3 from the moon is estimated to be worth $3 billion per short ton. This discovery could indeed trigger a gold rush, attracting nations and corporations to the moon. Several major energy companies have already expressed interest to NASA in funding future space missions. This could provide a significant boost to NASA's Artemis program. As we conclude, we'd like to know your thoughts. Do you believe it's only a matter of time, or perhaps even destiny, that the solutions to Earth's energy problems will be found on the moon? Or do you think renewable energy or free energy sources, as Tesla envisioned, would be better alternatives?